Hello everyone, Pineapple here, and after getting back into the 8th Doctor adventures via the Stuff of Legend a while ago, I figured we should continue where we left off with him, Charley, and Audacity in Deadly Strangers. Now, as you've seen on the thumbnail, it is exceptionally orange compared to where it is usually purple, meaning we are in spooky month. And I thought, since I've had this script and the one for Planet Crinoid on the burner, I'd include these in our Halloween festivities in this month of October. Now, last time I liked Audacity, and while In the Bleak Midwinter wasn't perfect, it had elements that really stood with me. But to be honest, when I first listened to this box set, nothing really took with me. It felt really by the numbers, and I almost immediately forgot what happened, especially in the last story. But after re-listening, there is actually some really interesting stuff here. Nothing amazing, but more than I initially gave it credit for. So why don't we start looking into Deadly Strangers with Puccini and the Doctor? Puccini and the Doctor is written by Matthew Jacobs, in fact being his first return since his stint writing the TV movie and starring in a nice documentary about himself called Doctor Who Am I? While on the actual plot level compared to most Doctor Who stories, not actually much happens. And there are a few moments things are explained by clear exposition, but I found myself really resonating with the idea the story plays with. It ponders on the origin and complexity of love and creativity in the human mind, shown from an outer perspective by the kind of antagonist of the episode, Princess Tura, who hails from a dimension occupying Earth's space at a different level, and has come to learn about humans, her danger coming from a place of ignorance. Building off of the love motif, we also touch upon Charley's early love for the Doctor, as that was a story arc that I recall from the 8th Doctor's main range adventures before and around the beginning of the Divergent Universe arc, and it's used pretty well, although I feel more could have been done with it, perhaps in relation to Audacity's perspective, her having had at least one moment of strong feelings I recall about 8 and Charley last box set. Speaking of Audacity, reprised by Jay Griffith, is used pretty well in the story. She could have done more, and the main character work is focused on 8 and Charley, but she was well played and written here, even if not used to her fullest. 8, and both his understanding and opposition of the princess, is all played excellently. The moral discussion making up for lack of outright action. Of course there is action and danger, but this story is certainly more focused on the characters, and while I don't love the story, it does great at this aspect. Puccini himself having ties to the Doctor through Grace, so that's a nice connection to Matthew Jacobs' last work. The composer, played by Tim McInerney, last seen on Doctor Who as Halpin, and while he is pushed to the side a little to focus on the Doctor and the Princess, I really liked how he interacted with the cast, as they just spend what feels like the majority of the story chilling with him, as he is mid-writing Madame Butterfly.
Some say Puccini is popera rather than opera.
Please do not say that to Giacomo.
In La Bohème, Mimi dies of consumption and unrequited love. In Madame Butterfly, she dies for Pinkerton.
Were all his heroines victims?
To a degree.
Not all. It took him a while.
To change his tune.
Very witty, Charley.
Thank you, Doctor.
The story eventually progressing as the princess invites them onto a trip and threatens to turn everyone into fish unless she gets what she wants. The Doctor's name, as he is the only one to solve her riddles 3. She uses her abilities to transfigure any men who fail her into objects, not really seeing the cruelty, even turning Charley into a bird when she can't tell her the Doctor's name. But eventually the princess is sent on her way, and like I've said before, it's certainly interesting on a character level, but the threat comes in hard and fast and doesn't gel with the rest of the story as well as I was hoping. So with great character interactions, writing and performance, great things to say and explore on the topics of creativity and love, but a threat I felt just didn't fit. I'll give Puccini and the Doctor a 6.5 out of 10. I feel others will get more out of this than I, but there were just too many conflicting feelings for me to put it any higher. Next is Woman's Day Off by Lisa McMullen, a mixed writer having written both the fantastic Girl Deconstructed and the meh, Time Lord immemorial. Interestingly enough, this is my favourite of the box set, but it's very similar in its problems to Puccini and the Doctor. On one hand, we have the titular Women's Day off kicking off when our TARDIS team arrive in the middle of the 1975 Icelandic women's strike. And the setting is used well in many aspects, like the comedy of men being unable to cook anything but sausage, and the actual educational factor is very well done, feeling a lot like a classic story in the way it puts a historical moment on display. But the Women's March has absolutely nothing to do with the plot, not one iota. Well, no, I lied, it is mentioned once, and I suppose thematically the main characters that aren't the Doctor are women, but it does really only tie in exactly once, and it's only used as a reason for two characters not to interact, so Charley can go on a smart and humorous fetch quest. On the other hand, we have the actual plot, which is pretty investing, focusing on Kyla, played by Molly Harris, who has also been in the show before in Praxeus. Kyla has a lonely home life, and is shipped off to a boarding school where she only ever gets along with the under-characterized English teacher. Seriously, I liked the character, but she definitely could have used more time. Miss Gunner, played by Kate Terrence. They have a sort of Matilda thing going on, and their interactions, the past interspersed with them speaking at the end of the story, make for some clever foreshadowing. Kyla is the heart of the story, isolated and relatable, and performed pretty well, these types of adolescent characters coming across as annoying sometimes, but she struck a pretty good balance, and while it doesn't do much else, the story uses the whole Women's Day event to explain away the absence of most people around the whole alien Carrie thing going down, which I suppose is needed in this story as there is precious little time for more side characters. This release, I'm sure, being at least 10 minutes shorter than the other stories, which seems like either a lack in the writing department, as with some better characterization, or use of the march. This could have easily been extended. Kyla finds an alien device and suddenly develops random telekinesis, it adding pressure to her already stressful life, and the alien comes by to retrieve it. He isn't anything stand out, and like Gunner, could have been more interesting, but he serves his purpose. Jeffred, played by a previous companion, George Watkins. The whole story gets a happy end with Kyla being cared for by Gunner, Jeffred on his way, although the ending itself is bloody abrupt. In the way of the main cast, 8 starts off as a more comedic role, fitting in well, but becomes the heart of the trio, running after Kyla repeatedly to try and help her, while Charley and Audacity help a bit in the end, but are mostly exploring the march, almost getting assaulted for making it look like Audacity pulled a gun.
Get back to your husbands and do as you're told!
I don't have a husband!
No wonder!
Take your hands off her, or I shall pistol whip you into next Thursday!
One of them mad witches has got a gun!
It's a firelighter!
Don't tell them that!
But that pretty much amounts to nothing. I think the story would work a lot better retold as a 2 or even 4-part classic story format to give both the alien plot and the historical plot more room to breathe. But as it is, even with its flaws, I really enjoyed what it gave, so even if I think people's preference might rate it lower at a 6.5 or 7, I'm going to give Women's Day Off by Lisa McMullen a 7.5. Now onto the final story of the box set, The Gloaming, by our favourite Big Finish writing duo, Lauren Moody and Stuart Pringle, who we saw writing the best story of Zygon's Sentry Infiltration, and while on my first listen of this box set I was completely turned off by The Gloaming, ready to give it a 4 out of 10, I have no idea what Past Me was on about. This isn't the best story of the set, and I do have a few gripes, but it's not as bad as I had gaslit myself into thinking. A little more put together than Puccini, but I had more to complain about with Women's Day. After a pretty good cold open and setting up of the story, the TARDIS team are trapped on a moon where the population of a once beautiful and now desolate planet sleep in hibernation in an institution, the titular Gloaming. But there is a being haunting the nightmares of the sleepers. There's a lot going on in this story, even managing to reference past and future Charley stories and Terminus. So why don't we go right in and talk about the main draw of the story, the Mara. Now on a character level, the focus of the Mara in its possession of Charley, and while it can get a little nagging and repetitive in a couple of moments, it mostly sticks the landing in its creepy and cruel torment.
You've given everything for him, and he's tossed you aside like so much waste. Down here in the dark, you know it's true.
Shut up! Stop it! Doctor!
You don't have to be alone anymore.
This also works as an origin story of sorts, but not how you may think. This is not where the Mara originated, as I feared the story might be about, because I didn't think this story would do that justice. But as the Mara is a Gestalt being, it means you can have offshoots slightly separated from the main group, meaning there is not rivalry between it and the Doctor, but the Doctor can still rage and be scared shitless by the threat. The Mara's plan is an interesting one, infecting the sleepers of the planet through their dreams, but we only see a few examples of it, and the defeat of the creature is mainly through a really emotional arc experienced around one of the sidecast, the helpful but lonely and almost abandoned robot, Franz, played by Graham Seed, who has been trying to protect the other sleepers, drawn to desperate measures by his corporate programming, shooting any infected directly into space and eventually doing the same to himself once the snake infects him, even as the Doctor tries to find another way. In the rest of the sidecast, we have Meryl, played by Abigail McKern, who serves her purpose in the story but didn't really leave any impact for me. Once possessed fully, she's taken out like a chump, and before then all she really did was start Audacity's annoying subplot. We also have Deckard, played by Homer Todiwala, last seen in Dark Gallifrey, and while his character is quite annoying, he brings some good out of Audacity. His attitude leaving much to be desired as he reveals the Gloaming was only made to save people that had enough cash. He is also immune to the Mara's corruption, and that is a little iffy, as Charley describes him as empty, with nothing for the Mara to hang on to, good or bad. And that just felt off. I'm not sure what they were going for there. As said before, Audacity gets a handful of bad and handful of good moments. The bad, an annoying detour where she's drugged to sleep, and in an attempt to save her from the Mara, 8 pumps her with stimulant, making her go crazy in a cringe and annoying way. It's a useless detour that sticks me halfway between apathetic and annoyed. On the other hand, when the truth about the Gloaming is revealed, she flips out and has a pretty good verbal strike against Deckard and his type. He isn't as bad as she thinks, but he is still part of the problem. And although they later posit the question of whether or not the Mara was influencing the people when they ruined their planet, the moment still holds up. The Doctor is pretty good in this too, not getting an or any annoying moments like the others get, being able to sell sadness, fear and anger when dealing with the Mara. It's not standout in Paul McGann's performances, but he's still pretty good here. Of course, as said before, there is also the commentary aspect of the story. And while doing well for characters like Audacity, I'm not sure if it pays off the best. I like that they decide to live in the hope of not knowing whether the Mara influenced the planet's demise, but that kind of feels like it's undermining the whole commentary aspect of you ruined your planet and you only saved the rich. It's sort of being excusable if it was some ancient Gestalt snake god of beasts making them do it. So overall, this isn't my favourite of the box set, and is a lot better than I remembered. I guess I had an off day when first listening to this set, but it still isn't perfect. I may be ready to give it a 6.5 like Puccini, but I think I preferred the pacing of the story to that. So to put it between the last two stories, I'll give The Gloaming by Lauren Mooney and Stuart Pringle a middle road 7 out of 10, but definitely closer to a 6.5. That leaves the box set with a total score of 7 out of 10, a little better than in The Bleak Midwinter, that came in at a 6.6, but I think overall I would have preferred that set if not for Winter of the Demon. Thank you everybody for watching my review of Deadly Strangers, the first of the videos in Spooky Month. The Mara being appropriately spooky. Please like the video if you liked it, comment down below if you wish, consider subscribing to the channel if you do, ring the notification bell so that you're told every single time that I make an upload. Once again, thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next review. Bye!
Toast. A little piece of toast, because there's so much to choose from. There's brown bread, white bread, all sorts of wholemeal bread. It comes in funny packages with writing on the side.